Okay, let us start our discussion. So far, we discussed about the basic concept about the line and slope of the line, how to find out the equation of the line, all those things. Now, we coming to the concept of asymptote. What is asymptote? Imagine we have a curve y squared f of x and straight line is there, AB. If I say two things, one is curve is there and another is line is there. The line AB is called asymptote of the curve. What happens as we move further and further away along the curve, further and further towards the infinity, means the moving point on a curve, I can say that tends to infinity, means the curve does not itself shift. The moving point on a curve means the variable point is going to p comma xy, they will going to tend to infinity, means either it may be x coordinate or y coordinate of the curve point will going to move tend to infinity. The curve approaches whatever the distance between curve and line, I can say that becomes almost zero. In plain words, the curve gets closer and closer, means the curve does not itself, the curve, I can say that I can say the length of the length of the curve will going to become, the curve approaches to the line as we go out towards the infinity. The curve never actually touches it, but it almost hugs it from the tiny distances. See, for example, with an example I can explain here. Suppose if you take y equal to x here, x becomes, see here, the variable point x, and if you take any point on the curve, there is, if in that case, if you go on increasing the x value of one variable, x becomes large, y becomes very small here. X as x tends to infinity, the y becomes 10 to 0. Means the, I can say that the curve moves like this. Means curve, the, I can say that the approaches 0 here. Means x is equal to in, I can say that here the x-axis is an asymptote here. It means that the x-axis is an asymptote because the variable point y, I can say that x tends to infinity. Here one of the coordinate of a point, it may be x or y. Here x tending to infinity, y will going to tending to particular constant value that is equal to 0 here. In that case, the curve approaches 0 but never touches it. Therefore, that line, we can say that the line is called asymptote. Try to understand. The distance tend to the gap between almost nothing far away, means almost never, but never touches, gets closer and closer. Okay, this we can say that with I will give an example. Suppose the variable point, I can say that the curve remains same as I told you. The curve does not itself shift here. The variable move, the variable point p of xy moves along the curve towards the infinity. This is very important. Here y is good. The variable point p of xy is there. No, the one of the point, the x coordinate or y coordinate will going to tend to 0. If suppose if I say that y coordinates will tend to 0, means x variable will going to become is here. Here y is equal to f of x. Here if you take 1 over x, if you take an example of y is equal to 1 over x, here one of the variable means is x tends to infinity. Here the y approaches at 0 here, constant. That we can, that is the reason why the curve approaches y is equal to, I can say that what happens in the approaches the horizontal, there are two asymptotes here. In this case, what happens, there are two horizontal asymptote, and here as I can say that x tends to infinity, the y tends to 0 here. But what happens in this case, but whenever we can easily understand, but in the reverse way, if you take it, x approaches 0, then what happens, y approaches infinity, and that is, I can say that this x is equal to 0. This is what a vertical asymptotes here to this curve. and horizontal asymptote this one. Means one of the variable here as x approaching I can say that I can say y uh, in the reverse way, if suppose y approaches infinity, that what happens, x approaching 0 here. Okay, but never crosses the 0. That is why this is vertical asymptote and horizontal asymptote here. If you take another example, you can take y is equal to 1 over x minus 2 here. In this point, the coordinate, I can say that the y coordinates, the moving point y coordinate, I can say that approaches infinity, the x will going to become 2 here. Okay, that's why x is equal to 2 is an vertical asymptote here. But as we y approaches, I can say that 2, what happens in this case, see here y approaches 0 here, then y approaches 0, what happens in this case, x is approaching 2 here. Is it correct? Sorry, x is approaching infinity here, y approaches 0, but x approaching, what happens, this is x approaching infinity. Is it correct or not? As x approaching infinity, the y approaching 0, it means that the x is, I can say that, horizontal asymptotes, as I told you in this case. The curve runs parallel to the x is equal to here. As the two things are there here also, as two things, whenever in the reverse way if you take it, it means that as x tends to infinity here, you can say that whatever this y will going to become tends to 0, that is called horizontal asymptote. Okay. Now as y extends to 2 here, x tends to 2, the y value going to become tends to infinity, means x is equal to vertical asymptote here, that is called vertical asymptote. Now the summary and behavior, okay, in two types, as y is equal to x, two things. The point is either x coordinate or y coordinate tending to x extends to infinity, here y approaching 0, the asymptote is horizontal asymptote, y is equal to 0, that is x-axis. In y is equal to 1 over x minus 2, y tends to infinity here, then x tends to 2, that is vertical asymptote x. The approaches describes as the path extends to infinitely, not the graph is moving. As I told you, the curve remains fixed, only the length, I can say that the point way moves along the curve, that's all. This is how we can understand the things.